Who first dared to place a flame inside a house of light? The question drifts through the silent halls as night blankets the library, turning every column into a pale ghost and every scroll into a sleeping heart. The air tastes of salt carried from the harbor, mixing with the breath of countless stories waiting in the dark. A soft wind slides beneath the high stone arches, stirring the hanging lamps as though warning them to stay awake. Somewhere deep within the rows, a single sound breaks the stillness. Too light to be footsteps, too heavy to be the sigh of settling wood. It is enough to lift the quiet into unease, enough to make the shadows feel watched. Tonight, the library seems to hold its breath, as if aware that knowledge can be burned as easily as paper, and that a mystery older than fear is preparing to open its eyes. Morning settles over Alexandria like a slow rising prayer, warm and golden, touching every rooftop and market stall with gentle light. The city hums with voices from distant lands, each carrying stories, questions, and hopes that flow toward the library as if drawn by an unseen tide. The smell of spice drifts from merchant ships, mixing with the scent of fresh parchment drying in the scribes' quarters. Inside the bustling streets, people move with purpose, yet a soft reverence clings to them when they pass the library's grand walls. It is a place that seems to breathe, gathering minds from every corner of the world and weaving them into something larger than any single life. As sunlight washes over the stone steps, the day begins like a promise, unaware of the shadow that whispered through the halls the night before. Within the cool inner chambers, the caretakers of knowledge begin their quiet rituals. Lamps are trimmed, scrolls inspected, dust brushed from marble floors with tender patience. Their work is not loud, yet it carries the weight of centuries, for every gesture honors the fragile memory of civilizations. They move with calm precision, as though aware that one careless moment could erase the voice of a poet or silence a discovery waiting to be reborn. Still, beneath their gentle motions lies a subtle tension, a sense that the peace they guard is thinner than it seems. The library stands strong, but the world around it shifts like sand, and even the wisest cannot predict where the next tremor will come from. Rumors drift through the city like dust in sunbeams. Whispers of political strain, of generals planning new campaigns, of scholars arguing over forbidden works secretly copied in the night. The library has always gathered curious minds, but curiosity often invites conflict, and ideas do not stay quiet once discovered. Even in the calmest rooms, a tremor of disagreement ripples beneath polite conversation. It is a reminder that knowledge is a force as sharp as any blade, and those who wield it draw both admiration and fear. As tension builds, the library feels caught between pride and danger, glowing brightly while shadows gather at its edges. Before sunset, a thin trail of scent winds through the lower passages like an unwelcome guest. It is faint, almost easy to ignore, but those who work among papyrus know it too well. The sharp, dry sting of something burned. No flame is found, no lamp overturned, yet the smell lingers long enough to stir unease among the keepers. They glance at one another with quiet alarm, each wondering whether the warning rises from accident or intention. As the light fades from the sky, the library seems to listen again, aware that danger rarely announces itself with sound. Sometimes it slips in with a single breath of smoke. The calm of Alexandria begins to tremble as distant sails appear on the horizon, white and sharp against the morning sky. Ships from Rome slide into the harbor like silent omens, their presence heavy with the weight of ambition and unrest. In the library, the scholars pause in their work, sensing a shift in the rhythm of the city, as though the tide itself has changed direction. Merchants speak in low voices, and the guards along the palace walls tighten their hands around their spears. Every corridor echoes a little longer. Every whisper seems to linger before fading. It is the kind of stillness that appears before storms, the kind that warns the heart even before the mind understands. The library, ancient and wise, feels the pressure gathering around it, like a great mind bracing for a question it does not wish to answer. By midday, Rome's presence fills the streets like a tightening knot. Soldiers march with steady rhythm, their armor clinking in perfect unison, a sound that echoes across stone walls and unsettles the air. The people of Alexandria try to continue with their routines, yet their eyes drift toward the uniforms that gleam a little too brightly under the sun. Inside the library, murmurs grow. Some speak of opportunity, others of danger, each word carrying the weight of uncertain futures. The scholars gather near the main hall, voices low, trying to guess what Rome desires most: knowledge, territory, or control. As tensions build, the library feels suddenly smaller, as if its walls are listening for any sign of collapse or flame. Even the lamps burn more carefully, aware that the world outside is shifting faster than ink can dry. As the afternoon deepens, messengers hurry through corridors carrying sealed orders between the palace and the Roman encampments. The library becomes a crossing point, its halls filled with footsteps not meant for learning. Scrolls are moved aside, tables shifted to make space, and uneasy glances pass between scholars, who sense that knowledge is once again caught between rival powers. Caesar's influence whispers through the city, stirring both admiration and resentment. Stories spread of disputes near the harbor, of fires set during skirmishes, of leaders losing their grip on calm. In the center of this rising tension, the library tries to maintain its steady heartbeat, yet even its calm is fraying at the edges. Every breath feels heavier, as though the air carries sparks waiting for a reason to ignite. As night approaches, the city rings with shouts from the harbor. Flames rise where Roman and Alexandrian forces clash, their anger spilling across wooden docks and oil-soaked ropes. From the library's highest windows, the scholars watch with dread as sparks leap toward nearby warehouses, their glow painting the sky in streaks of red. Smoke drifts inland, carrying the bitter smell of burning hemp and splintered timber. The fear grows silent and sharp, for everyone knows how easily wind can turn chaos into tragedy. The library, filled with the breath of 1,000 writers long gone, feels exposed, fragile, almost mortal. Each distant crack of fire sounds like a warning meant for its walls. Tonight, the line between the city's battles and the library's safety feels thinner than ever before. Before dawn, the fires near the harbor weaken, but the fear they awakened remains. Smoke settles over Alexandria like a dark veil, drifting into the streets and through the library's grand entrance. Scholars gather in uneasy silence, their faces marked by exhaustion and concern. No one speaks loudly, as though afraid words might invite disaster. Rumors spread of scroll warehouses near the docks being damaged, of flames creeping dangerously close to areas filled with trade manuscripts waiting for copying. The thought is enough to leave a hollow ache in every heart. The library stands untouched for now, but the night has proven how easily the world can tilt toward ruin. The scent of smoke hangs in the corridors like a memory that refuses to fade, a reminder that the first spark has already been thrown. Morning arrives pale and heavy, drifting through the library as if burdened by secrets it cannot name. The scholars gather in the central hall, their voices lowered to careful murmurs, each one carrying rumors of forbidden documents hidden deep in the archive rooms. The night's fear has not faded. Instead, it has shaped itself into suspicion. Some claim that certain scrolls should be locked away, their ideas too sharp for a world trembling under political strain. Others argue that knowledge must remain open, even when the world outside grows restless. The tension does not crack or shout. It settles quietly into every glance, every breath, every cautious step. The library no longer feels like a sanctuary. It feels like a battlefield where the weapons are words, and the wounds are made of silence. By noon, the disagreements sharpen. Groups of scholars gather in corners, speaking urgently about texts believed to be too dangerous for public study. They refer to ancient works describing lost rituals old sciences and visions of the world that challenge what rulers want to hear. The library's purpose begins to split in two, a place for open wisdom and a vault for secrets too heavy to carry freely. This divide grows quietly but firmly, shaping friendships into opposing lines. The atmosphere thickens as though every breath is threaded with caution. Even the shelves seem to lean inward, listening as the first cracks in unity begin to form. As the day deepens, a small group gathers around a locked chamber, rumored to hold restricted works. Their steps are quiet, but their intentions pulse with worry, not only for the scrolls, but for what power might arise from them. Some fear that Rome will seize forbidden texts to strengthen their rule. Others fear Alexandria's leaders will hide truths to protect themselves. Trust thins like fragile parchment. Even the lamplight seems uncertain, shivering as though anxious about what it might reveal. A silent war begins with no blades, only the trembling thought that knowledge can rule or ruin depending on whose hands hold it next. As twilight approaches, the library grows restless. The air cools, yet tension warms the rooms like a quiet fire. Some scholars gather in secret to copy certain scrolls before they can be hidden away. Others watch the entrances, determined to keep forbidden knowledge sealed. It becomes clear that the danger threatening the library is not only the violence outside the city, but the conflict seeping through its own heart. The walls, built to protect wisdom, cannot protect the people who disagree on how that wisdom should be held. Every quiet argument feels like a tremor, every hidden act a spark. The silence grows louder than any shout. Night returns with a heavy stillness. The library feels like it is holding its own heartbeat steady, afraid that any sudden motion might shatter what harmony remains. Some scrolls have been moved in secret, hidden for protection or power. No one knows which. The whispers of earlier hours fade into tense quiet, leaving the halls echoing with unspoken fears. Outside, distant shouts rise from the city again, a reminder that the world beyond these walls is burning with conflict. Inside, another kind of fire grows, one made not of flame but of doubt. Alexandria's greatest treasure is no longer threatened only by armies or accidents, but by the fragile hearts of those sworn to guard it. Night settles over Alexandria with an uneasy glow, as though the sky itself senses the weight of the hours to come. From the harbor, faint shouts drift toward the library, carried by shifting winds that seem to whisper warnings through the columns. Inside, the halls feel colder than usual, the silence stretched thin like a fragile thread ready to snap. Scholars gather in small clusters, voices low, afraid that loud words might welcome disaster. Lamps flicker along the main corridors, their flames trembling as if expecting to be swallowed by darkness. In the distance, a dull thud rises, the sound of something striking wood, followed by a murmur of alarm. It is still far away, yet close enough to twist the stomach with fear. The library feels awake in a way it never has before, alert, bracing, listening for the spark that may change everything. Sudden shouts rise from the western district, followed by a glow that builds too quickly to be harmless. Flames lick upward between the warehouses near the docks, bright and wild, fueled by the chaos left behind from the night before. The wind begins to shift, pushing the fire toward the crowded streets, and panic spreads in ripples. Within the library, fear deepens. Every scholar understands how easily a single gust could carry embers across rooftops and into the very heart of knowledge. Runners rush through corridors, breathless, warning that Roman forces and Alexandrian defenders are clashing again, their battle sparking fires neither side can control. The air takes on a dry, smoky taste, sharp enough to sting the eyes. The library stands tall, but its safety feels like a fragile illusion. As the fire spreads along the harbor, soldiers push carts of supplies through the streets, their movements frantic and uneven. Reports rush into the library, some claiming the flames were sparked by retreating forces, others insisting it began by accident during the chaos. Truth blurs in the smoke. Inside, scroll keepers scramble to protect the most precious works, carrying bundles of papyrus toward inner rooms where stone walls might shield them. The corridors tremble with hurried footsteps, the once gentle home of learning now filled with the pulse of fear. Through high windows, sparks drift upward like glowing insects, swirling in the rising heat. Every whisper turns into a prayer that the wind will turn, that the fire will bend away, that the ancient words sheltered here will survive the night. Smoke enters the library at last, faint but undeniable, seeping through windows and drifting in thin gray ribbons along the floors. The sound of distant collapse echoes across the city as burning beams fall, sending sparks into the sky. A wave of urgency sweeps through the halls. Some scholars call for sealing the main entrance, others for evacuating the most valuable writings to the Serapeum. Arguments flare in hurried bursts, but there is no time to resolve them. The flames outside grow louder, crackling like a chorus of hungry voices. The lamps tremble as if threatened by the fire's breath. For the first time in centuries, the library feels vulnerable, its vast knowledge trapped between danger and indecision. The night stretches on, each passing moment heavier than the last. Deep in the night, a sudden tremor shakes the library as a wave of heat rolls in from the harbor, strong enough to rattle the wooden doors. Sparks dance across the sky, carried by rising winds that seem determined to test the library's defenses. A hush falls over those inside, a silence filled with dread and memory. They know that this moment may mark a turning point, the hour when fate stops waiting and begins to act. Outside, the flames roar like living things, tearing through docks and warehouses, drawing closer with each breath of wind. Inside, scholars press their hands to ancient shelves as though trying to steady the very soul of knowledge. The air grows thick, heavy with smoke and fear, and the night feels ready to break open into something irreversible. Dawn arrives muted and gray, its light filtered through thick bands of drifting smoke that cling to Alexandria like memories refusing to fade. The fire at the harbor still smolders, sending thin lines of heat into the morning air. Within the library, exhaustion hangs over every face, yet no one dares rest. The night has shown how easily destruction can reach them, and now a trembling urgency drives each step. Scholars move through corridors, counting losses, whispering prayers, checking every chamber for damage. Even where no flame touched, the smoke left its mark, settling over shelves in a fine layer that feels like the dust of forgotten worlds. Still, the library stands, fragile, shaken, but stand. And with the sunrise comes a quiet vow. They will save what they can, no matter how many shadows linger at the edge of their hope. As the morning brightens, the library becomes a place of movement and murmured instruction. Plans form quickly: which scrolls must be moved first, which rooms offer the strongest walls, which paths through the city remain safe. Yet among the steady rush of work, fear holds a quiet place in every heart. The city beyond the library's gates is restless, stirred by rumors and anger, and the fire has left people searching for someone to blame. The scholars feel this pressure like a tightening rope, aware that knowledge has become a fragile treasure in unstable hands. Still, they move with purpose, each action a promise that the past will not be surrendered to the chaos of the present. Before noon, word spreads that parts of the city are turning against one another, political factions arguing, temple groups accusing scholars of angering the gods, soldiers demanding control of information they barely understand. The library becomes caught between these rising tides, its halls a refuge, yet also a target for suspicion. Inside, the scholars sense the shift, knowing that destruction can come not only from flames, but from fear. They continue their work with calm discipline, but the atmosphere grows heavier, filled with an unspoken awareness that the world outside is inching closer to their doors. The library's silence is no longer peaceful. It is guarded, listening to the heartbeat of a city on the verge of breaking. The sun climbs higher, and with it, the tension inside the library. Plans are made to move a selection of precious scrolls to the Serapeum, where stronger fortifications may keep them safe. The decision brings conflict, for some fear that dividing the collection weakens it further, while others believe it may be the only way to save even a fraction of its memory. The discussions are quiet, but intense, shaped by exhaustion and worry. Outside, ash still drifts from ruined buildings near the harbor, settling over rooftops like black snow. The library feels suspended between past and future, between survival and loss, its fate balancing on choices made in hurried whispers. As evening approaches, the city's unrest sharpens. Torches appear in distant alleys. Voices rise in chants that ripple through the streets, and the sense of danger grows thicker than the smoke still clinging to the air. The library feels the tremors of this growing wave, and its keepers brace themselves for the trials ahead. They gather in small groups to share news, to steady one another, to remind themselves why their work matters. The walls that once felt invincible now seem fragile, but their dedication does not waver. Though the world outside threatens to fracture, the library holds fast to its purpose, preserving the pulse of human thought even in the shadow of destruction. Night returns with a heavy calm, the kind that falls after long days of fear and gives no promise of peace. Inside the library, the remaining keepers move with a quiet, determined grace, aware that fewer stand beside them now. Some have left to protect their families, others to follow orders from shifting powers in the city. Yet those who remain cling to their duty as if it were the last steady thing in a crumbling world. The halls feel larger than before, their echoes deeper, their shadows longer. Smoke still lingers like a pale veil along the upper arches, carrying the faint memory of flames that nearly reached the doors. Despite the uncertainty pressing from all sides, the keepers push forward, driven by a simple truth. If they abandon the library, then everything it holds may vanish forever. By sunrise, the Serapeum becomes their last beacon of hope, a temple stronghold where knowledge may outlive the turmoil shaking Alexandria. Plans shift again and again as rumors spread of troops approaching, of riots sparking near the market, of rival groups debating who should control the library's treasures. Every pathway through the city holds danger, yet doing nothing feels more dangerous still. The keepers gather in the courtyard, voices low, forming a fragile chain of trust. They know the journey ahead may not be safe, but their purpose softens the fear. Even the pigeons roosting above seem to sense the tension, taking flight in scattered bursts as if trying to warn them of the world outside. As midday settles over the city, the streets outside the library throb with unrest. Distant groups shout in sharp bursts, their words twisting into warnings carried by the wind. Inside, the keepers gather near the main entrance, listening to the muffled chaos while arranging their final plans. Fear passes through them like a shared breath, but they remain steady, knowing that hesitation may cost the past its last refuge. Some speak of the Serapeum's high walls and its loyal priests, others of the danger of traveling with valuable knowledge while the city trembles. Still, they stand firm. The library has taught them that courage does not always roar. Sometimes it is a quiet step toward an uncertain path, taken because something greater must be protected. As the afternoon deepens, the library grows almost silent, the kind of silence that feels heavy with meaning. Scrolls lie sorted into careful stacks, ready for transport. Lamps burn low, their glow soft and steady, as though honoring the work being done. Some of the keepers pause to touch the carved pillars or trace the faded paint on ancient walls, silently recognizing that this may be the last time they stand in these halls. The building feels alive, holding its breath, waiting to see whether the knowledge it shelters will be carried into safety or left to the mercy of whatever force rises next. Outside, a warm breeze drifts through the windows, carrying the scent of dust and distant ash. It brushes over the scrolls like a quiet reminder that time never stops, even when people wish it would. As evening slips in, the final preparations reach a fragile completion. The keepers gather in the central hall, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of a single cluster of lamps. They stand in a circle, not out of ceremony, but out of shared resolve. The air is warm, carrying both fear and hope, as if the library itself is offering a final blessing before the journey to the Serapeum begins. Outside, the city murmurs with distant tension, but here, for a moment, everything is still. They breathe together, united by purpose, and in that quiet unity lies an unspoken promise. That even if they cannot save everything, they will save enough for the world to remember what once lived within these walls. And sometimes, enough is everything. Night falls softly over Alexandria, but this time the darkness feels different. Calmer, deeper, touched with the quiet ache of endings. The keepers stand near the library's doors, ready for the journey ahead. Yet none can bring themselves to step into the uncertain streets just yet. The library hums with a low, lingering warmth, as though its walls are trying to hold their presence for as long as possible. In the silence, each breath feels like a farewell. Outside, smoke still clings to the rooftops in drifting threads of gray, rising from distant corners, where the city continues to fight itself. Inside, the glow of the lamps paints gentle halos across the marble floors. For a moment, the keepers stand still, suspended between past and future, aware that they are the final link in a chain, stretching back through centuries of minds that dared to record their world. As they begin to move the scrolls toward the courtyard, the air shifts. A cool breeze drifts through the columns, stirring the dust into delicate spirals. It feels almost like a whisper. Not a warning, but a reminder. The library has survived storms, conquests, rivalries, and now fire. Yet its survival was never guaranteed by stone or walls. It lived because people believed the words inside mattered. The keepers carry this truth with them now, step by quiet step, knowing they are not just moving scrolls, but carrying the breath of ancient voices to a safer place. With each footfall, the library seems to brighten, as if grateful that its legacy will not be abandoned to the noise of a city that no longer hears itself. By midnight, the group pauses once more, gathering in a narrow passage lined with tall windows. Through the glass, they watch the city shimmer with scattered torchlight, glowing in fractured patches like a mosaic of uncertainty. The streets beyond the library are unstable, shifting with unrest and the fading glow of damaged buildings. Still, the keepers feel a strange peace settle over them. They understand now that the library's fate cannot be tied to a single structure. A building might fall, but the ideas sheltered within can endure across centuries, carried by those who refuse to let them die. In this quiet moment, the keepers breathe in unison, letting the truth anchor them before they continue their fragile mission. When they reach the inner gates, the final preparations pause again. The night is quiet except for the faint crackle of distant embers and the soft hum of wind sweeping over stone. The keepers gather their strength, knowing the path to the Serapeum may be shadowed by fear, yet this fear no longer controls them. They stand in a circle, sharing steady glances that speak louder than words. Within this moment, something gentle blooms. A realization that the library's spirit is not ending, but changing. Like a torch passed from one hand to the next, its flame moves into new guardians, new places, new futures. What burns tonight is only the body, not the soul. Before stepping into the night, the keepers turn one last time toward the library. Its pillars rise in calm silence, touched by the glow of lamps that shimmer like fading stars. The building seems to breathe with them, holding centuries of dreams in its vast chambers. They know the story of the library will echo long after its stones crumble. Through every scroll they save, every memory they carry, every whisper shared across generations. The mystery of its end does not lie only in fire, but in the complex weave of politics, pride, time, and silence. Yet tonight, standing on the threshold, the keepers feel something deeper than sorrow. They feel transformation, an ending, yes, but also a beginning shaped by their courage. And as they walk into the dark, the library watches them go, its legacy alive in their hands.